But with aligners, like I started like 50 cases in my first 6 months. Like I just took off.
We have Dr. Avi with us. He's a dynamic dentist in America, and he's doing a lot of amazing things. I first saw or heard about him on the Protrusive podcast with Dr. Jaz Galati, and I started following him at that point, and really excited by all that he has to share with us today, and really grateful that he was able to come on and really speak with us and just share his dental journey so far, what he's up to. If you haven't, you do need to check out his Instagram. There's not many dentists out there that actually do Instagram well, but I like the way that Dr. Avi has his Instagram page, really exciting, dynamic, and very relatable. So if you're not already, make sure to be following him on Instagram. But no, Dr. Avi, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Dr. Arnold. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know. I just couldn't stop smiling because just using the word dynamic, and no one's described me as dynamic before, but I really like that.
So, Dr. Avi, just a brief intro in terms of where are you based, where are you working, just a little intro into yourself as an individual, then we'll get into it.
Yeah, so high level, I am currently practicing in Austin, Texas. I grew up in Florida and I went to dental school at NYU. And then when I graduated in 2018, I was practicing in the New York, Connecticut area. And then basically had a lot of turnover between associateships, which we can get into later. But I had about 8 in my first 2 years out of school. My wife and I then ended up moving down to Austin and joined a practice there. That's when I got introduced to aligners for the first time and started to have success with that. And then and then I rather have kind of just like continued to grow. But I know you wanted to kind of dive into some specifics, so
Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah,
I want to just start at the beginning. I think a lot of dentists forget that getting into dental school, into the profession, is just a challenge by itself. I don't know if that's unique to the UK or if it's the same in America, but what was it like for you trying to get into NYU and trying to get into dental school?
Yeah, so growing up, I guess like I could kind of go from like why dentistry, right? Like why did I choose to be or why did I want to become a dentist? So growing up, I in middle school, I really wanted to be in the NBA. Like I genuinely thought that I was going to be in the NBA. I was tall, athletic, I love sports, and I was good. Like I was good at basketball. And then high school rolls around and then I'm not the tallest, I'm not the most athletic, and yeah, I just like wasn't as good as everybody else. And so my parents were, being raised, in an Indian household. My parents had always told me like, get a good education, get a good job, and I'm like, forget that. Like I'm going to the NBA. And then I was humbled. So so then I was like, okay. And I think it was like freshman or sophomore year when I like was not starting and all that. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not the best. And then I realized like I didn't want to put in all those hours and efforts to do it. So then I leaned on what I was good at, which was math and science. And then I kind of went down a very like logical approach as to why I wanted to do dentistry. But I boiled it down to, okay, if I'm good at math and science, like, maybe it's going to be dentistry or medicine. And so then I shadowed my uncle, who is a dentist, and spent the summer with him. And I kind of just we were doing everything right. Like I kind of saw the way he was working in the practice, how his life was outside of the practice, and I realized that he had 3 things that I was really attracted to. He had time because he was only working like 4 days a week, and he was traveling the world with his family. He had money because he had a nice house. He was had a nice car, and I could tell he was like fulfilled. He was making an impact because his patients they appreciated everything that he did. So I saw all 3 of those things, and that's why I was like, okay, I think this is the direction I want to go in. But what sealed the deal for me was, while I was there, he had a dinner party, and a bunch of his friends were there. One of his friends was actually a neurosurgeon, and
Oh,
so I was talking to the neurosurgeon, and he was just like, "Oh, what do you want to do? What do you want to be?" And then I told him, I don't know if I, at that time, I actually wanted to either do sports medicine or dentistry. And so that's where he was like, well, you have to make a decision. Do you want to go to medical school or dental school? And I think at that point, like, I had just seen how my uncle was, having a blast at this party, and this neurosurgeon's talking to the 16-year-old, and he wasn't really partaking in the activities. And so I was like, and he was on call that night. So I was like, I think I want to go be a dentist.
yeah.
So,
So
so
is the
that
process quite drawn out? What's it like from making that decision to say I want to go into dentistry?
so
What's that process like? Just a brief summary, yeah.
yeah, so basically to get into dental school, you have to have prerequisite courses completed in undergrad. And it's your basic sciences. I don't know this, I forget the specifics, but it is mapped out. And so you don't have to major in like a science degree. I majored in biology just because it was all the courses in biology, were going to automatically kind of feed me in. But I mean, you can major in whatever you want. You could have a business major, and then you could
Mm.
take the science courses that are necessary to get into dental school, and then take those courses, pass them, obviously, get good grades, and then you have to take the DAT, which is our national standardized test to get into dental school, the dental admissions test, and um, and then obviously try to score, as well as you can. For that, I studied for about 6 weeks straight, during the summer while I was in college. And I just, I dedicated pretty much every day to it. I had a structure where I studied like 8 a.m. to about 2 p.m.
Yeah.
and went to the gym, and I just trusted that process. And honestly, like, it was very like balanced. Like, I liked it. I had a buddy, we studied together, and we'd study, we'd go to the gym after, I'd have dinner. I was watching like Game of Thrones like every night back then, because that's when that show was out. And yeah, and then I did well in the exam, and you have to have some recommendation letters as well from
Mhm.
professors. But kind of had my application set ready to go, and then I applied. You can apply to as many schools as you want. I
Oh
knew
wow.
that I wanted, yeah, I knew that I wanted to apply to schools in the Northeast. So I applied to 9, and NYU was actually the first school to get back to me. And then you go and you have an interview, right? So essentially, the way it works is if you have good enough grades, a good enough DAT score, then they want to meet you in person. And that's what the interview is really like. It's more of them kind of getting a final, or them getting to just see you as a person, right? Like, are
Yeah.
you somebody who can, talk to patients in the future, or are you like this, like, I don't know. NYU had we had some like strange people in our class, so I don't know how
Yeah.
they passed the interview, but they did. So we had like 375 students in our dental class.
Wow.
Yeah, it's one of the bigger, if not the biggest, dental schools. On average, though, in America, dental schools allow each year has about 80 seats, give or take. So
Gosh. Okay.
NYU is massive.
Yeah, so that's probably in comparison to one of our bigger dental schools in the UK, King's College London. But the dental
Hmm.
school I went to, UCLan Dental School, only takes about 30 students a year. So it
Yeah.
was very small, student staff ratio was you couldn't hide.
Yeah, no, I believe it. So what the way NYU has it, right, is like they boil it down. So by the time you get into clinic years, your third and fourth year, you will then you're sectioned off into groups. So our group in clinic is was about 24 students.
Gosh. So one of
Yeah.
the things that people get a little bit worried about when applying to dental school or getting a dental degree is the cost, how much it
Mm,
costs. The debt that you have from it. Here it can range from about 60 to 90,000 pounds, but when I
right.
hear how much it costs for you guys over there, it's a different ball game. So how do you how do you even compute the numbers in terms of the loan and the debt when you guys are thinking of going to dental school? How is that processed?
So for me, it was $500,000. Now, NYU, it's like around $750,000. So, um, you just don't think about it. You can't you can't think about it because it's tough. Like, well, so it's different, right? Like for me, I think it was more of just like I knew I wanted to be a dentist. I was like, this is like the path that I want to go down. I want to do it. And then I became a dentist, and then reality hits, and then you realize like how much you can make. And it's not like you just graduate dental school and all of a sudden you're making 200, $300,000, right? Like you can look online the average income for a dentist, and it varies because what I realized is it is literally up to you as a clinician, right? If you don't offer expanded procedures like implants, aligners, Botox, if you don't do that, you can't charge for that. You can only charge for what you do. And I think everybody forgets that, at the end of the day, like as a dentist, you only get paid for what you do. So it's not like you're here in the States, at least, like you're not like salaried, right? So it's up to you as an individual. And so I think traditionally, a lot of dentists could get away with not doing many procedures because the debt that they had to take on to become a dentist was significantly lower. I think it used to be like 50 grand or something like that to be a dentist back in the day. Like it's wild. So right, so the cost to become the price to become a dentist is increased, but what we can charge patients, right,
Yeah.
for standard procedures has not changed in 20 years. So that's a challenge. And so what that does is that forces you to have to change and adapt,
Yeah.
or stay the same and suffer the consequences. So yeah, you
That half a
go ahead.
million, do you start paying that as soon as you graduate? At what point does that start becoming a consideration?
So get this. So while you're and this blew my mind. I figured this out at a party in my first year of dental school, like the second week of dental school. So basically, you take a loan, a student loan from the government, and then um, interest on that loan starts accruing the day you take that money out. So you're in dental school for 4 years. You have no means of paying anything back because being a dental student's, a full time job, and interest is accruing. So you leave dental school with like whatever the interest is, right? And it's
Yeah.
7%, 7%, which is ridiculous. And then so you come out of school, and then you have an option. There's like they have like it's called income driven repayment option, which is the most favorable to you. What it does is basically um, your payments that you have to make for that year is
Yeah.
based off of your previous year's in is based off of 10% of your previous year's income. So when you come out of school, your income obviously wasn't that much, so it's a very low amount, and so it's flexible. However, that's just to determine the payment. The interest is still accruing, so it's almost kind of like it's on you how aggressive you want to pay it off. And so
Yeah.
there's a bunch of like ways that you can go about it. Something that worked for me was I in the beginning because I had a lot of that job turnover. I didn't refinance to a lower rate by going to with a private, I guess, lender. I kept it with the government, and I essentially just kind of making those basic payments,
Yeah.
because with a strategy is, you can do that income driven repayment option for over the course of 20 years. You can just constantly make 10% of your previous year's income. And then at the end, whatever the residual balance is, you just pay like a one time tax on it. And that's fine if you know that your income is essentially going to be less than like 200 to $225,000 for your entire career.
Yeah.
So that's a gamble. Because if you start making more than that, then that math doesn't make sense for you to be on that plan. So my whole thing is like stay on that until you see that your income has increased and has stabilized, and then once you get to that point, then refinance it to a lower rate and then aggressively pay it off. Um,
Gosh.
so
Yeah. So
it's and they don't teach you
ours
this.
ours is safer than yours, because with ours, so whenever you go to university, in the UK, and you get the government loan, you have to
Yeah.
be earning above 20,000 a year before you start paying anything.
Mm,
And then when you do cross that threshold, there's an similar to what you were saying, a percentage of your income above 20,000 then goes towards your loan. But if you don't pay it off in 30 years, it gets wiped clean.
Wow, must be nice. No, and that makes sense. Look, and this is a problem. Like, and this is why anybody who's not a dent, like, if you haven't gotten it, like, you need to. I think now you really have to really know why you want to be a dentist, right?
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm not saying that if I could go back in time, I wouldn't do it, because I actually think where I'm at today and my path forward, I'm very excited about. But if you're getting into it just for the money, terrible business decision.
Yeah.
Horrible. There are a million other ways that you can make money
Yeah.
outside of being a dentist. Like, you genuinely need to, like, enjoy the aspect of, like, you have to be ready for the mental grind, the emotional grind, the physical grind. Like, it's not easy to be a dentist. And so for the price tag and, what's coming on the other end, like, you really have to be certain. And now for those of you that are already in dental school, like, don't be afraid. Like, you can do it, but you have to now get creative, right? I think our generation and the generations to come, you cannot just open up your own practice and think you're going to be successful. You have to really arm yourself with education outside of dental school. And then you have to find your niche. And then you have to build your brand as a dentist, as a person, and then monetize that. Because if you don't, you're just going to be like the next person on the block. And then that's where you're going to kind of fall into that trap. Because I actually think the scary days are still to come, right? Because before, you could, like, play it safe as a dentist, and just kind of do status quo, and you could be fine because you didn't have that much debt, and you could just still charge the basic prices. But now your debt's increased, your income's here. If you don't match or surpass it, like, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not.
I
Put
really
it this
want to
way.
get in.
I'm not trying to wait to figure that out. I'm trying to make moves.
I really want to get into that part about building a brand later on.
Yeah.
But I just want to ask you, was dental school easy for you?
I think so the type of person that I was in dental school was, I was definitely like, work hard, play hard. Me, like, I lived in Manhattan, so amazing city, if not the best city in the world. Um, I'll just say that I'm a little biased, but basically what it was is I was focused, right? Like, um, I knew that I didn't want to specialize pretty early on, right? I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna, like, figure out when I'm in school, like, which procedures I like, and if there's one procedure that I just love doing, then maybe I'll consider specializing. But I kind of knew that I had, like, a threshold of where my grades needed to be. So I figured out the amount of effort it took for me to study and understand the information and then do well on exams. And I'll be honest, I wasn't an A student in dental school. I was like a B to C student. Do you guys have, like, A, B, like A through F over there in the
So
UK?
we've got honors. You get a first, a second class, a 2-1, 2-2, and
Mm.
that's how they sort of grade it. But it's mainly percentages. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was, like, in the 75 to, like, 82 percentage range, like, in terms of my school. But, like, I passed the exams, I understood the information, I moved on. Also, dentists, I don't need to know the Krebs cycle to be a successful dentist. Like, I need to just know how to do procedures to be a successful dentist, right? So once that happened, I knew how much time I needed to, like, dedicate to studying, and I did it. So I would study on the weekends before exams, and I would really be focused. And then after the exams, I would enjoy myself. And so that was kind of like this reward system that I had set up for myself.
Did you find that dental school prepared you well for life as a dentist? So if we make that transition from finishing dental school to starting out in dentistry, do you feel like you're prepared?
I think the adversity doesn't stop. So yeah, in that regard, it prepared me. But it's not like I graduated. Like, you can't think that once you graduate, like, you're done learning. If anything, like, that's when it starts. Like, I felt like when I graduated dental school, now looking back, like, I just knew how to not hurt somebody. Like, that's it. And then now it's like, okay, cool. Now the journey starts.
Yeah. How was it in terms of getting into your first post? So over here, most people will do what we call a foundation year. You've got a supervisor,
Mm,
and they watch over you for your first year of working, and that's employed. So I think that's about £30,000 for the year, and then after
okay.
that, you now go into the world of being self-employed for the majority anyway. How is it for you?
Um, so it's like the Wild West out here, man. Like so you could go into a residency where you're like in a hospital and then you have like this kind of structure around you, but I didn't do that. Um, I Most dentists are you're allowed to pretty much just go practice. So I was an associate at an office, and on paper, it sounds great. Like, oh yeah, I'll go work for a dentist. I have the opportunity to make as much as I can. I can learn from this person. But on the other end, not every owner dentist is like equipped to be a good mentor for you, right? They're they're a small business owner, and they're your employer. And so there's an expectation that you have to do certain things. And then if you can't perform to that level, then they have the ability to let you go. So, yeah, I had to kind of really take on, and I went into every opportunity just wanting to learn, wanting to consume information, wanting to get better. But I found that like not every doctor I worked for was willing to actually teach me. They were a bit selfish, which was a shock. Um, so yeah.
And how was that experience of now being, um, you finished dental school, you're now working, you're trying to handle an income, work out your next life steps. What was that like? And you mentioned that you had 8 different posts. That's a lot of change. How was it for you around that time?
Um, it was tough. It was tough. I think like like I didn't like I didn't let it bring me down. Like It was it was definitely a challenge, but it was more of like okay, that happened. What are the takeaways? How can I move forward? Like when you're in it and you go through that much adversity and change, like you don't have time to sit and like, look for condolences. Like you need to find a solution. And so that's what I would do. So my wife, like, I mean, she's the backbone of everything that I do, and like we kind of just had a system where it's like, okay, what were the pros, what were the cons for the next opportunity? What are we looking for, right? Like, what are the different things that we need that we didn't have that would help me progress? And then you just kind of make a decision, and then you move forward. So, yeah, like didn't really understand, not understand, but I didn't like I processed it, but I didn't like sit in it and let me bring me down. Like I always went into every new opportunity with new hope, a new goal on something that I wanted to learn. Um, and then it just, you kind of just take it step by step.
So I ended up getting married in my final year, or just before my final year of dental school. Um, and yeah, I agree. Having a good, solid wife is I I can't even put in words how much it just furthers you in every
Hmm.
aspect. Did you get married whilst you were in dental school or shortly after?
So we had been dating since my last year of high school, and so we were long distance. And it wasn't until I got into dental school that we were like for the first time like in the same city. And so we were dating, and then we got married a year after I graduated dental school. But
Wow.
we got engaged. Yeah, we got engaged like right after I graduated.
Is she in dentistry as well?
No, thank God. She's she's director of finance for a tech company.
All right,
So
something very different, different worlds.
yeah, but I mean, I talk all like she can practically be a dentist at this point. Like she knows everything. She knows the struggles. She knows what you need to do to be sick. Like she can do it.
So how did you figure your pathway in dentistry? I think before you even start registering dentistry as a potential career, you're thinking teeth. How much can there be
Mm-hmm.
to teeth? But the more you get into it, the more you realize there are so many different pathways you can take, and you can make dentistry whatever you want it to be. How did you figure out which direction you wanted to take your career?
So for me, it was just like starting with the basics, mastering it, and then trying something new, and then mastering it, and then trying something new. So when I first came out, I was like, I just want to get really good at fillings. Like I want to do the best fillings. And then so I learned how to do like amazing composite fillings, you know, the class twos. And I was like, I just want to get good at this. And so repetition, courses, videos, I consumed it, I practiced it, boom. Awesome. What I want to get good at extractions, you know,
Mm.
and like bone grafts. Learned it, courses, implemented, boom. Next thing, I was like, I want to get good at crowns, posterior crowns. I want my crown preps to be perfect. Same thing, rinse and repeat. But then I started to like burn out
Mm.
because I was like, you can only charge so much for this stuff, and so and it's just all high volume. So then that's when the pandemic hit, and then I was just kind of like, you know, those three pillars that I told you at the beginning, right? The time, money, and fulfillment. Um, I didn't have time. I'm like 2 years out of school now. I didn't have time because I was working 6 days a week. I didn't really have that much money because the jobs that I was working, they weren't really right. The reimbursement rates weren't that high for these basic procedures, and I didn't feel fulfilled because I was just like, how is this actually helping somebody? Like it's just sure you're cleaning out caries and you know doing that, but I was like, this is the patients really don't care. Like I don't know. Like this seems like there has to be more.
Yeah.
And so then that's when I invested in myself again during the pandemic, and I started to learn more about aligners and implants, and so started to want to implement those in the two offices that I was at. Um, Basically told him, hey, would love to implement this. The owner actually told me, he said, I don't want you to do aligners because they're not profitable. And so I was like, uh, that's not what everybody tells me. So then at that point, and I realized it's because he just didn't know about it. Like he didn't actually know how to effectively implement it. So then that's when me and my wife decided to move because at that point, we kind of knew this was the next step in my career.
Yeah.
And so we moved down to Austin, and then that practice, they welcomed me and everything I wanted to do with open arms. They were like, here's an iTero scanner. We have a Nobel implant system. They're like, do whatever you want. And they're like, we'll give you money for courses, like go for it. So I was like, awesome. And that's when I started doing, so implants were good, but it was like, it's surgery. So it's like, you kind of got to ease your way into it before you can go full blown. But with aligners, like I started like 50 cases in my first 6 months. Like I just took off.
Yeah.
Um,
So were they
and
doing any aligners? Why do they have a scanner already?
So they had a scanner because I think they understood the value of a scanner and like how this can help, right? Like patients just kind of be more informed about their mouth. And it's like, I mean, as dentists, like we got to wake up, like black and gray, 50 shades of gray, talking about like nobody, everybody wants color. They want to see things. They want to zoom. They want 3D. They want to touch it. They want all that. Like,
Video. Yeah.
yeah, it's all about video. We're all staring at our phones all day. Like you can do that for their teeth, and now all of a sudden they understand it, and they're learning, and they have more of an emotional buy-in. So the practice had it, but all the dentists there, because it was a corporate office, so the management understood the value in it, but the doctors in the practice were a little bit older, so they weren't using it. And then I just started using it, and it worked. And so
Okay.
I
Okay.
ended
So
up.
I just want to get this straight. Did you ever have the opportunity to use alginate impressions or silicon?
With
Sorry.
aligners?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, never,
Ah.
never.
So
And I would never
I
do
had to
it.
go through using silicone and putty for like a
Mm,
good year and a half until I could convince my principal, the practice owner, to then invest in a scanner. Now that I'm on the
yeah.
scanner, I would never go back. But I'm a bit jealous that you never got to.
So at that original practice that I wanted to implement it in, they didn't have a scanner, but I was so desperate to do aligners. I was like, dude, like I'll do it. I'll take the impressions. Like I'll train the staff. And
Yeah.
then, luckily he said no, and then I got to go because that would have been tough. But yeah, I feel for you. I could not imagine doing aligners with impressions.
50 cases just doesn't happen. What were the steps that led to you getting to that volume of cases early on in your dental career? And what can we learn from that?
So the number one thing was desperation on my end. I was desperate to learn something new and be really good at it, right? I knew what was on the other end of aligners. Like I knew there was freedom. I knew there was, a way to impact my patients in a positive way. I knew that there was money, like all these things. And I was desperate for all of that, right? Like I'm coming from this like black hole of like debt and jobs and all and change. And so I was desperate to learn and I was willing to do anything to make it happen. So then I seeked or I attended a webinar and there was a doctor, Dr. Christina Blocker. So she's Invisalign faculty and she's my mentor.
Mhm.
And she kind of helped me out. Like she was just like, hey, I will support you guys. If you need any help with, just reach out to me. And so I leaned on her and I was just like, okay, I just need to know a couple things. I was like, what cases can I treat? What can I do to make sure that I don't hurt my patients, right? What should I absolutely not touch? And then um, pretty much it's like, can I come to you for support whenever I have questions, right?
Mhm.
And then so all those things like came together, and then like I just kind of kept doing it. So she basically, right, like she kind of told me, okay, refer your class 3 cases, refer your bilateral cross bites, refer deep bite cases greater than 4 millimeters. And then she said, easy things would be like anterior open bites. You can treat those with aligners. Class ones with like crowding in both arches, spacing in both arches, all that stuff. So I created like this little my own guideline, and then I just started going for it. And then yeah, in the beginning, like I didn't know if it was gonna work. I was just like, I'm trusting this lady. Like I was like, I'm just trusting her. Like if it works for her, maybe it'll work for me. And so then I kind of just you fake it till you make it, and then you start doing the cases. And then I started seeing, right, a couple months later, like the teeth are moving, they're improving, the patients are taking care of their teeth, they're flossing. I'm like, okay, this is sick. Like I need to do more of this. And
Yeah.
then at that point, I started teaching coworkers, right? So other doctors in the office. Doctor, one of the doctors I worked with, he 20 years of experience, used to own his own practice, but he was open to just learning something new. And so I sat down with him and I taught him. And then he started doing like 10, 12 cases a month. And he was like, I wish I did this earlier.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, I feel good because I'm doing good treatment. And then I feel good because now I'm also teaching other people.
Yeah.
Um, and then so
What
I
was
started.
what was your educational journey with the liners like? So from you having that mentor who you were
Yep.
saying, okay, what's safe to treat, what's easy to treat, what should I refer? How
Mhm.
did you then develop from having those guardrails to then becoming a bit more independent and confident in you utilizing aligners?
Implementing it, repetition, just doing it. Because, and then I'm not gonna lie, like I also reached out to like the Invisalign, like clinical support, and I was like kind of doing those calls and I listened to them. And some of the stuff that they said contradicted what my mentor would say. And so I lost a little bit of touch with my mentor because I was like, oh yeah, like I got this, like I can do this. And I was listening to the support. And then one of those cases ended up in a posterior open bite. And I was like, oh damn, like this is not good. And then I reached out to my mentor and she's like, okay, like she walked me through it and she's like, we got to figure out how it happened. And I told her, she's like, oh yeah, your molars tipped out. And I was just like, oh, and she's like, why'd you move them? And I'm like, I don't know, like the support person told me to. And she was like, so then she gave me a solution, and then at that point, I was like, "Cool, I'm not listening to support. I'm just gonna like follow these principles because every other case that I did where I followed her principles, they all came out perfectly fine."
Yeah.
Um,
So
and then no,
there's
you're good.
I guess an issue because I always hear dentists saying, um, Invisalign, for example, don't teach you how to do orthodontics. Um,
Mm,
there's a 2 day course and then or 1 day course, and you're expected to then go out and treat patients. But the way I see it, that's just the beginning. The
yep.
onus is then on you to
Hmm.
do all the other work around it. Do you find that that's something that dentists in America face? The fact that they almost feel like everything should have been covered in your accreditation as a provider.
Yeah, I think so. But that's the funny thing, right? It's like when you are in dental school, they don't really teach ortho here.
Mm,
general dentists just don't really get to learn it. Like my exam for dental school for my ortho class was like, how do you write a referral to the orthodontist? Like, like it was bad. Like it was bad. Like they did not want you to know it. So, no. So I mean, I think yeah, it's just with anything though, right? Like you come out of dental school to do composites, right?
Mm,
And then it's just like you don't really know you. There's so many techniques and ways you can do it, and it's continuing, literally continuing education, right? So, um, yeah, I think that is an expectation, right? Everybody would like to just take one thing and be done forever, but
yeah.
that's not how life works.
Did you
Which is
take any
why,
other courses surrounding your work with the mentor as well?
yeah. So, well, I didn't take any other courses for my first year. Like I just leaned on her, and I looked at it like I got personalized support, right?
Yeah.
And then I saw the social proof by my cases actually working. Then I took a course, which is a popular one here in America. It's Re-engage with Dr. Galler, which is like a
Oh yeah.
2-day weekend course in Vegas. So I took that, and that was great. But then
Yeah.
also when I took it, I was like, because Blocker, by the way, my mentor, she teaches principles that Dr. Galler taught. So I had already been learning principles and implementing it without actually taking his course. Then when I took his course, it was like a nice like reaffirmation, like, hey, what you're doing is good, keep doing it. And then I did learn a couple more things, but at that point my machine was already running,
Yeah.
and it gave me even more confidence. So yeah.
Nice, nice. And okay, just reeling it back to, you talked about doing, these 50 cases early on. What do you think was key to achieving that? Because I don't know if it's the same over there, but when I talk to my rep, he says you get one of two providers. There's one set who never really do a case after they become
Hmm.
accredited. And then there's the other section of dentists who will just fly with it and just
Yep.
do loads of cases. There's no in between. It's either you're doing very little or nothing, or you're doing a
Yeah.
consistent amount. So how is it over
It's
there?
same thing. Doctors that I see that doctors will either be doing 1 to 2 cases. They're either not doing. There's three categories.
Hmm.
They're not doing it at all, or they're doing it, but they're doing 1 to 2 cases a month, or they're doing 10 or more cases a month. Those are the three categories here. And it's because of how they're talking about it, right? If you don't stack wins early with a new procedure, right? If your first 3 cases aren't wins, you're not going to do that procedure ever again. And so starting simple and predictable is key. And then you can start to learn everything around that. And then you grow as much as you want. But the best part is like, you don't need to be doing full blown, like complex cases to be successful with aligners, right? Like you can do there's a gradient, right? It's like even with compared to extractions, there's a
Yeah.
simple extraction, right? Like a periodontally involved incisor, and then there's taking out impacted wisdom teeth, right? And then you've got all the different types in between. And so for your first case, like with aligners, don't try to take out the impacted wisdom tooth, right? Like just like do the super mobile incisor, get that out, because yes, the actual process of getting the tooth out is one thing, but the other is you get practice now with the setup, right? What do you need to set up for the case? What do you need to do during the case? What do you need to do after the case? How do you talk to your patient about post-op? How do you talk to your team about what they need to do to support you? It's all the other stuff except for the actual physical clinical part.
Yeah.
And so I always tell doctors and compare that with aligners where it's the same thing. Like thing is like you're not actually moving the teeth. Like all you're doing hands on maybe is like polishing the excess composite of the attachment and maybe some like IPR, right? Like that's it. The assistant can do the other stuff, but right, and it's just like the hands-on like part is very minimal, and it's all about, right, like how are you going to set up your case, like what does the workflow look like, how are you going to talk to the patient and motivate them, because if your patient isn't motivated to wear the aligners, the treatment won't work.
Yeah.
And you have to know how to navigate the conversation so that way they don't blame you for their teeth
Mm.
not moving. It's like it's this whole like concept of motivation and empowerment. with your patient. So it's like a lot more talking than it is actual physical like labor.
Yeah. So okay, let me throw this at you. Maybe you live in an affluent area. Everyone's got money to spend on the liners, so it's easy
Mhm.
for you to get quite a lot of cases.
That wasn't the
You know,
case, by the way, for me, but for this situation, I'm
you
listening.
know, you've got a scanner. You've got things going for you to do a lot of cases. So
Mhm.
maybe it's just that you were placed in the right place at the right time to do a lot of cases. I mean, what would you say to that?
I would say for me, not true, because the practice where I started doing all these aligners, it was my average demographic for the patient. The practice itself was older than me. The practice was literally older than me. The patients were about 50 to 60-year-olds, working class. They all worked for the state, right? So they were not rich. They were all just there because we took their insurance. But yes, we had a scanner. That was the only like benefit. But even then, in the beginning, I wasn't even using the scanner's full capacity. Like because you have to get your team on board to do all that. I was like taking articulating paper in hygiene exams, like when I was doing my just regular exams with patients, I was having them bite on the articulating paper and then showing them with a mirror, like, hey, see those blue spots? Like that's where you're hitting your teeth. Like that, like I was doing that level of education. And then they would see it and they were like, oh, okay. And then I would explain to them the oral health. So that's my biggest thing. It's oral health, oral health, oral health. Because whether you're in a low socioeconomic, middle class, or upper class area, every single human being can value oral health. 95, not 90, maybe 90% of people actually care about what their teeth look like. And in the UK, it's way lower than that. I know. But
Shots
most
fired.
people, shots fired. I had to throw that one out there. No, sorry, I missed that. I didn't say that right. 90% of people don't actually really care about the appearance. Like they're not going to shell out $5,000 just to make their teeth look nicer, but they will give you $5,000 if they know that improving the position of their teeth will lead to less problems in the future.
Yeah.
That is something that people can get behind. And that's the biggest switch that dentists have to start making is stop focusing on the cosmetics. Like not everybody, yes, there's small niche markets in affluent areas where people want to pay for that and you can make a great living off of it. But
Yeah.
you can be in a practice that is not that affluent, but if you know how to present this treatment option, you can get a lot more acceptance and you can make a difference. Like these people actually need that
Yeah.
because it's going to help improve their oral health.
Did you utilize any paid marketing early on, or even now?
Nope,
Like, what was that ever a thing for you?
nope, $0. It's literally all these cases are sitting in they're sitting in the practice. If
Okay, but
it's just
so were they all purely from you having those one-on-one conversations and really emphasizing oral health, or did you start to
mhm.
put some posters in the office or anything like that?
Nope, just conversations.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it. Like dentists, like we have like the superpower of like we literally can control like most of the things that we do. And I think what it is a lot of dentists are just afraid to talk about it because they're not confident. But once you're confident about this stuff, you can talk about, you can say it. It's like if you see massive decay and it's
Mm.
by the nerve, you're telling that patient they need a root canal, right? Like you're telling them. But flip side, you're a dentist that doesn't like doing root canals. You're going to tell them, oh, we're going to try to do a big filling here and we'll place some liner to really, maybe make sure we insulate the nerve. And then maybe you may need a root canal, but I don't know because I don't really want to do the root canal. So I don't
Yeah.
know. Like you see the difference? And that's
Yeah.
that's how it is with the liners.
How did you find the process of? So it's one thing starting cases. There's
Hmm.
another thing then maintaining cases, and it's another thing closing cases and just aftercare. How did all of that come together for you?
Um, for me, it was definitely a journey. Like I realized that like because I took the approach of oral health and because the patient valued it, they ended up being way more compliant. Granted, yes, there's a couple cases here and there where they just wouldn't comply.
Yeah.
Um, but then they weren't upset that their teeth didn't move and they knew they weren't going to get their money back, right? It was just kind of on them. But we tried to motivate them, but a lot more we had a lot better compliance because of it. So that was like kind of the maintaining part. And then finishing, um, the biggest thing that I learned is like if you have to do additional aligners or you have to do refinements, like don't beat yourself up about it. I think general dentists, we think like, okay, it's going to be, we're very matter of fact, right? Like, are the margins opened or are the margins like, sealed? Like, there's no, that's it. Like, are we, is that crown perfectly seating or is it not? But with ortho, there's a little bit more of there's like some leeway, right? Because you can always just move the teeth a little bit more, right? So I had to learn early on. That was the biggest challenge was like, okay, they had 22 aligners planned. We finished it. These teeth could still be better, right? They could be in a better position. Cool. Just because we need to do more aligners doesn't mean that we failed. It just means that we need to do more aligners to get to the result that we want. And so I realize also that patients don't think like that. Like if you let them know, like, hey, this is going to be around 20 trays, it's going to, take 6 months. At the end, we will assess the teeth together and we will determine if you are ready for retainers or if we need to do additional aligners. And then it takes all the pressure off. That
Communication.
was, hmm
Communication.
yeah.
In terms of retainers, are you Viveras or do you have locally lab made ones? How do you
So,
approach that?
so right now, I'm doing Viveras.
Yeah,
I'm doing Viveras, yeah, and I'm doing bite ramps pretty much on all cases except for the open bite cases.
yeah,
Um, and that's kind of what I do. And I know orthodontists love their permanently bonded retainers on the mandibular anteriors, but it's hard for me to go if I just stress the importance of oral health. It's
yeah,
hard for me to throw a bar on there and just tell them to like zip on through and do all the extra song and dance to do it. Like I know like certain cases, right? Like you should, but I don't know. I like just doing that because at that point they've been wearing their aligners for 8 months, whatever it is. For them
yeah,
to just wear it at night, they're gonna do it.
yeah. Social media. Why are you so big on it?
So basically, a year ago, I started posting because I started a consulting business where I was teaching dentists how to do aligners. I was doing one-on-one consulting. So I was just like, okay, I didn't really have like a bunch of extra money to like invest in all this stuff. So like I made a website myself, like I kind of did all that stuff. And so I was like, you know what? Everybody says social media is powerful. Like, let's try it.
Yeah,
So then I just started posting and I started following accounts, non-dental accounts
yeah,
that were like essentially like Instagram coaches. Like they teach you what to kind of how to present value, how to like, build an audience. And so then I started doing it and just trying different things. And then it was fun because like this creative part of me that I didn't know existed, I got to kind of like use it. Um and it felt weird at first because nobody else was really like posting like aligner specific content. You've got all your dentists like teaching everybody how to floss and brush, which I think is great, but that didn't seem authentic to me. Like
yeah,
I can't get in front of a camera and do the whole floss toothpaste thing. That's just not me. Like, and I
yeah,
get it. Like, there's a bunch of dentists where it is them, but I also feel like there's a bunch of dentists where it's not them, but they
yeah,
feel like they have to do that because that's what dentists on social media do. But that's
yeah,
BS. Like, be yourself.
yeah,
So that's what I got to do. Like, I just started being myself, and then I just noticed that the page just started growing. And I was like, okay, how can I like provide? And then I started like posting captions and like educating in the captions, and then that was taking a long time, and then I realized like not that many people are actually reading the captions, but I used
yeah.
it as a way to market, more so for my consulting business. And then when I created a course, I used it as a way to like market my free resources and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I'm impressed because for a lot of dentists, you know, as a profession, I think we get a little bit intimidated by putting ourselves out
Mm,
there and the criticism that can come with that. But I think we just overthink it as a
yes.
profession. So I really get excited when I see dentists who are out there being their genuine selves and just sharing value with the world. So I'm really excited by seeing what you've been putting out there.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I appreciate it, and honestly, my message is like because what I see is a lot of younger dentists and dental students, um, doing the whole, like, day in the life of a dental student. Like, you've seen those on YouTube, right? Those vlogs and stuff, like, I think that's phenomenal. Like, I think just pulling it's I think the biggest thing about social media and moving forward is like pull the curtain back, right?
mm,
Pull the curtain back. You don't have to put on this front. People want to see authenticity. People want to be able to know
yeah,
that they are going, like you are going through something similar to them. Like that's how you build connection. Because for me, my journey with social media, even before I posted myself, like in dental school and when I came out, like basically when I was in this like dark, depressed hole of dentistry, I was like looking at all these dentists posting these gorgeous cosmetic cases. And I'm in this like low income practice doing fillings and extractions. And I'm just like feeling bad about myself when in
mm,
fact, like it would have been nice to just see another dentist out there posting a regular day, like in a basic practice.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you spoke a little bit about it before we started recording, but you do have a course that you run. You teach other dentists how to get more confident using aligners, and I've seen some of the testimonials of dentists who have been doing well, from your teaching and mentorship. Sometimes it can feel like you don't know enough to be able
Mm,
to teach or pass on something. Um, I mean, in your case, I remember even last year when I was listening to the podcast with Jazz, you were sharing some gems there, a lot of useful stuff that anybody at any level of their aligner journey can really start implementing and using.
mm.
What made you feel confident enough to start saying, you know what, I've got things to share which are of value, and what didn't stop you from thinking maybe I haven't been doing this for 15, 20 years, or I haven't written a book yet to be able to start teaching this? Well, yeah, what made you get to that stage where you're confident enough to say, you know what, let me share what I do know and let me help
So it
people.
so it wasn't a switch. Like the things that you just said, all those thoughts went through my mind when I first started. Like, who am I?
Mm,
Like, who am I, this like 29-year-old, like what do I know? Like there's people who've been doing this longer and all that. So I had that imposter syndrome. And but for me, like there's two things that I was hearing, right? I was hearing the outside praise of like from the reps, like, oh my God, you're doing so many cases. Like, what are you doing? Share your methods. I'm hearing from my patients, like, thank you, like this is so helpful. I'm hearing from the staff, like, wow, you're so good. And then I have this voice in my head where it's just kind of like, oh, like this isn't anything special, or like you're not that special, or like, there's other people that are out there that are doing this. So like you shouldn't do it because like you could be stepping on their toes or taking away from them, or right, or whatever. Um, so I had to kind of like silence that. And honestly, like a lot of like entrepreneurs and people that are like just trying to like do like self improvement and stuff, like you have, it all starts with self confidence. And so um, I kind of like just had to look myself in the mirror and was like, dude, like you are. I think what helped, right, is when I took Dr. Galler's course and I
mm,
saw what he was teaching, and I was like, I already know this, right? And it's not because like I'm smarter than him. Like he's an extremely knowledgeable guy, and great teacher. But it was more of just like, wait, I I do things like a little bit differently, and like
yeah,
maybe there's other people out there that can relate to me that may not be able to relate to him because of and it's almost just like the age difference, right? And like
yeah,
the difference in age, I used to think was like a negative for me. Like I used to think that because I'm so young, like no one's going to listen to me, when in fact I'm realizing it's like a superpower, right? Like I'm young, like I'm up to date with things, like I know what's going on, like I can leverage social media and build connections and like do all that stuff. And And then it also inspires confidence in other people, right? Because other dentists are like, wait a minute, this guy's the same age as me. Like I could if he could do it, I could do it. And that's how it should be. It should be like if he can do it, I can do it because that's it. Like I'm not like a unicorn. Like I've just, I've had my fair share of struggles and I've worked through it and I've put forth that effort. So um yeah, that's kind of it. The imposter syndrome is always going to be there, but you got to push through it.
What's the name of the course, the masterclass that you've got?
Yeah, so I have two basically resources. I've got a free resource, which is a free master class, and I recommend it to anybody who is just like wanting to get started or just learn a little bit more about aligners.
Yeah.
I can send you the link so that way you put in the description. And that's basically, like I said, yeah, free masterclass. I give like workflow PDFs and all that stuff to help get you started. If you want more tactical information, the name of my course is called Clear Aligner Blueprint, and that is a self-paced. It's like a 4-hour course with a bunch of modules, like bite-sized information that doctors can watch on their own pace. And I also offer a year of like monthly coaching and support. So um, it's a great resource. I am brand agnostic, so I have a strong background with Invisalign, but I'm more just teaching like the foundational kind of principles of aligners, specifically for general dentists.
What are you finding are the biggest hurdles for people that you've been working with in terms of their journey with aligners?
So some of the biggest hurdles, I think it's like very office dependent, right? Like some of them I'm realizing like there's a lot of variables that are like a little bit out of their control. Some of the younger dentists, they are in between different associateships, or like they're like, oh, like I'm about to stop at this job and I'm about to start at a new one. Which doesn't surprise me because that's like what happened to me early on. But the way that I kind of help them and support them, it's kind of nice because I get to give them some career advice too, because
Yeah.
they're just like, what would you do? But the other thing that I tell them, right, is like this is a value add, right? Because if you know how to do this procedure, the next office that you go into, let's say they have a scanner, now you can walk through the door and be like, I know how to do aligners. Like I can be the aligner doctor in this practice. And now you've created a niche for yourself and you've almost separated yourself from the rest of the pack.
Yeah. J- Okay, so lab bills can be quite high,
Mhm.
and some dentists will even say that aligners are not profitable. How do you view that?
I think aligners can that phrase of aligners aren't profitable is true if you are wasting time by doing aligners, right? Like if you are taking on these massive cases that require multiple appointments, yeah, that's you're wasting chair time. Like a general dentist office is not set up for multiple visits. That's an orthodontist, like they have the model for it. We don't. So that's why kind of with me, I've simplified it to where it's straightforward cases. You're, about like 6 to 8 months, you're in and out. And then the lab bill, essentially, like you should be able to be doing aligners in like 5 visits, right? Because if you are educating the patient while they come in for a hygiene exam, so they're not doing a consult, you are just educating them and closing the case, and that doesn't even count as an appointment because that they're in hygiene, right? The next time you see them, they're in your chair, and that's for the initial tray delivery attachments, whatever initial IPR you have to do. Second appointment, 6 to 8 months later. Third appointment, 6 to 8 weeks later. 6 to 8 weeks later. And that's right around that 4 month mark. And then at that point, your next visit should be your final evaluation, give or take. Again, those monitoring appointments when you're first starting off, you can always add a couple more just to get the frequency. But then you have your fourth appointment, which is your final evaluation. And let's say everything turned out great, you're going, to retainers. They come back one more time, you take off the attachments and you give them the retainers.
Yeah.
So it can be efficient. It becomes not profitable when you have to see them like 10 or more times.
In terms of direct to consumer aligners, is that something that's affecting you at all? Do you see that as a threat? Do you see any potential in that? What are your thoughts of it?
So I think direct to consumer a couple years ago was a big issue. I think now it's slow. I mean, I don't have like I haven't looked at data, but just from what I'm seeing and hearing from patients, like I think the awareness is there, but I think there's also been like a good push on people like people to kind of avoid it or be hesitant. They're a little bit hesitant on it. Patients are. But with the way I look at it is like direct to consumer only it came about because general dentists weren't offering this procedure. Like Invisalign years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was, 15 years ago, they pumped in millions of dollars into marketing to patients. Now patients know about this treatment, patients want this treatment, and general dentists weren't qualifying patients for it. So what happened? Direct to consumer comes out. They're like, "Oh, we'll just do this." And, it's caused a problem. But for me, like, and we were talking about this earlier, like I am not competition. The only person like, and I truly mean it, is like I'm competing with who I was yesterday, every day. That's who I compete with. Like I need to be better than Avi was yesterday. And so somebody else down the street, great, you're doing aligners, awesome. That means more people know about it. That means more people are doing it. So it's very much an abundance mentality where aligners is so like there's so much potential like an opportunity just like out there. Like it is, I equate it to it is what implants was 20 years ago
Yeah,
when implants first started getting rolling. Right now you got all these people that are have exploded with it. Patients are wanting it. It's a great treatment, and that's where we're at with aligners. We're in the very beginning stages, but like it's about to pop up. I shared on my social media a graph that they one of the aligner companies, Dandy, I think, had put out of just like right now I think it's like $1 billion of
yeah,
treatment,
yeah.
and then but over the next 10, 15 years it literally just exponentially grows. It's the fastest growing procedure in dentistry.
Gosh. Yeah, no, I'm definitely seeing that trend in the UK as well, where adults they've had the exposure to both fixed braces and aligners, and a lot of them are saying no to traditional ways of doing ortho in favor of aligners. And yeah, as long as the case is appropriate, aligners is the preferred choice for most of my adult patients. In terms of, if we just move to branding,
Yeah.
um, it can seem like a term that shouldn't be used with dentistry and dentists. But the way I see it, is reputation. What's your
Yes.
reputation like in your area? Word of mouth. It's just that the way it's done is a bit different to 30, 40 years ago. Yeah,
Hmm.
how do you view branding? How do you work on branding, especially as a younger dentist?
So, 100% agree with you. Like when I first heard, you always hear, "Oh, what's your personal brand? You need to have a brand." Like even before I was like, everyone's like, "Oh, everybody has a brand," and it's like what I realized is like you actually have to do the self work to
Mm,
know what your brand is, right? Um, who are you as a person? And so I actually 2 years ago started taking like therapy seriously. So I started prioritizing my mental health. I prioritized my physical health, and I started there because I wanted to just be a better version of myself. And what spurred it was, my wife, and like I just wanted to like be a better person, also not for just for myself, but also for my wife, because I knew that there were ways that I could be better. And that's where I seeked out the help in with therapy. And so what then happened is I slowly started going on this journey of figuring out who I was, getting more comfortable in my own skin. And like we were talking about earlier, where it's just like I I felt weird, right? Posting on social media about these
yeah,
things that didn't resonate with me. So then it was like, okay, well, what the heck resonates with you? And so that was a journey of trying to figure it out. But you have to like try, and then it kind of starts to snowball. And then I realized like, oh yeah, like this is me. And then it doesn't matter how many people like it or view it or engage with it. Like, yes, obviously those are metrics that feel good because you feel validated. But
Yeah.
once you realize, right, like who you are and that what you're doing doesn't need to be validated, then it kind of like you tap into this different mindset. But in terms of branding, um, start there, figure out who you are, and then share it.
Mm.
Just put it out there. Because when you do that, social media does the rest of the work for you.
Yeah.
People will then find you because of your brand. And so, specifically for dentistry, it's even more important because, like, people think that they could just be a dentist, put on the coat, and then, like, oh, yeah, like smooth cruising. Like, you have to stand out. Like, why? Like, again, America, every patient pretty much, they're like, oh, dental insurance, dental insurance. Oh, I'm here because you guys take my insurance.
Yeah.
That's like a slap in the face. Like, they're not here because of you. They're here because you take their insurance, which means they don't really view you as an anybody. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And a lot of dentists get like have their egos of like, oh yeah, like I'm really good at this. And it's just like, if you're so good about it, how come like they're not here because you're like, but the other end of the spectrum is you've got your dentists who have these like, right, all your and the thing is you don't have to just be a cosmetic dentist to have a brand.
Yeah.
Cosmetic dentists have like that is their brand. But like you can also be like a very good and I'm not saying like you don't market yourself as like basic dentist, but like you can you can be the relatable dentist, right?
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
can be the dentist that is going through, the things that the common dentist does. But the reason why those aesthetic cosmetic dentists have so much like success, it's not because, you know, oh, cosmetics are great cosmetic. It's because they committed to that. They committed to the brand. You know the names of these dentists because they have put themselves out there and labeled themselves as this cosmetic dentist, and they've shown you the stuff. Like that can be the case for anything. Like, and that's what I started doing with aligners. And like my goal when I first started realizing, like, okay, I also have like my own brand out. Like, yes, the initial step is like I'm becoming known now as like this, like the aligner doc or whatever people like that was it. Like, because I had committed to that niche of aligners,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm just going to educate on aligners for general dentists. Like, that is like so specific and such a small like niche, but like that is how you get people to know who you are,
Yeah.
right? I have so many other things that I want to do, talk about, make an impact, but like if you start going all over the place,
Mm.
people can't they don't you know what I mean? Like they can't put it all together. You have to be kind of known for one thing and then you break through that wall of being unknown to known and then you can like spread your wings how you want. But
Yeah. Yeah. No,
we
even
all
listening to that, it's making me think about, what is my brand? What's
Mhm.
my USP? And for me, I just enjoy finding out people's stories. So even with my patients, on my social media, you'll see people's stories. My patients will be doing the talking. And I think that reflects because I just enjoy sharing other people's stories. So that's what I really
Well,
go
that's it,
in
and that's
on.
a skill. Like you have a skill to get people to open up,
Mm,
right? That's also part of the brand is like you need to know what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? What do
yeah,
you find like what makes you tick and what makes you feel good? And then you build off of that. Like, yeah, like you don't have to be, but again, here's the best example of a brand, right? Kylie Jenner.
yeah,
Who is like, what did she do? What did she actually do? She is you take it, you know what I mean? Let's rewind, right? Like, sure, she's the daughter, right, of Chris Jenner or whatever, but like, is there anything really special? No, but she created this, right? This
yeah,
persona. Kanye, yes, he's an artist and he's got that, but that's his skill, that's his talent, and then he broadcasted it. Like, and again, you don't need to like be known all over the world, like, for dentists, like, you just need to be known in your area. Like, if
yeah,
you are a dentist and you wanna be a successful dentist in your you just need to be known in the area.
yeah.
And you just
You
do
don't
that
need
by
a million.
niching down.
No, you don't need all of that. I just want to ask. So, what I find is, I think sometimes, looking from the outside, you can think that it's only the people with thousands of comments, hundreds of thousands of likes that are getting a big surge of um, patients coming into their clinic. What
Mm,
I found is that
no.
it's actually the DMs where things really happen. I mean, for yourself, as you've been building your brand, how have you found that start to reflect in terms of the work you're doing, the people you're seeing, as well as the people you're getting to teach now?
Yeah, so 100% the DMs is where everything it all goes down in the DMs. Like that's a fact because these like the dentists that have all the hundreds of thousands, like those aren't all prospective patients. Like they've gone viral, but virality does not translate to a growth in income or patient appointments or anything like that. And it's like, yeah, it makes you look more legit, but that's not always where it's at. But yeah, for me, a lot I love talking to dentists in my well, I don't market to patients, right? Like
Mm,
I'm doing my aligners for patients is totally separate than my social media. My social media is targeted like, for dentists and aligner education strictly for dentists. And I've like committed to that. And so
yeah,
yeah, dentists will DM me and then they'll have a question and then I'm able to answer it. And then it's just like, hey, like it's also this thing, like, it cracks me up. Like, there's so many dentists who are like, "I love your content," and I'm like, "Oh, great, happy to share." "Did you know that I had a research?" Like, "What? Like, you have like a program?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I have a program." Like, it's because for me, I feel like I'm posting about it every day. But they're like, "Oh my god, I would love to." I had no idea. Like, but I'm looking for more education. I send them a link, they sign up, and then it's done.
yeah. Yeah,
So yeah.
it's crazy that, isn't it? That you post so much about something and you think that people have got the idea that this is what you're about, and they start
Nope.
asking questions. You know,
Dude, like there was like 2 weeks in a row where I was like looking at my wife and I was just like, that's just shocking. Like I thought that I had like tapped out on like social media. Like I was like, oh, all my followers know what I do. But what it is it's just the select few that are because right, you see who sees it. And I don't like scroll all the way through, but like a
yeah,
couple hundred people are viewing my story every time I post. And so it's like I'm like, oh, you see some of the some familiar faces, but it's just like a lot of those are just like family, right? Or like, close friends and they don't really care. Like they know. And so I don't know. For me, it's like, oh, I feel like I'm like talking about this too much, but
yeah,
that's how I feel. That's just like the negative self talk. The positive self talk is like, no, you're talking about something that you're passionate about. And so it's your page and you're allowed to post whatever you want
yeah,
and if people don't vibe with it or if they think you're too much, they'll just unfollow you.
yeah.
Like I have people unfollow me like every day. I don't know who, but they do. And I also have people that follow me every day, right? So it's just kind of like this whole back and forth.
But it's
But
refining,
yeah.
isn't it? The audience that really want to consume your
Hmm.
content. It's just refining.
Correct.
I just want to ask. So you're really invested in aligner therapy. Um, where do you see it going, and what excites you most about it? Love it, love it. Thank you for your time. I mean, um, I reached out to you maybe a week or so ago, and you're so gracious to respond and actually give me the time of day. So no, I really appreciate that, and I hope I get to talk with you, catch up with you at a future date, and just keep in comms, over Instagram DMs. But yeah, where can people find you? Follow you, and just where we can find your course as well as we wrap this up.
Yeah, no, I honestly appreciate you reaching out. That's awesome. I'm honored that you did, and it's funny because like yeah, when people are like, "Oh, like thanks for responding," I'm like, "Dude, I respond to everybody." Like I will, because I've been on the other side. Like I've
Yeah.
reached out and people have not responded, so I always make it a thing where I will respond. So anybody watching, feel free to DM me. But yeah, my Instagram handle is at doctor.avi and doctor spelled out. That's the easiest way to get in contact with me. That's where all the aligner content is. I actually also have a YouTube channel where I'm doing weekly aligner videos, and the handle is the same. It's Dr. Avi spelled out. And then the course is you could find it on my website. It's www.clearalineradvisor.co, and then on there you'll have the free masterclass and then the program, the paid program itself. That's probably the easiest way to get all that. But yeah, this was awesome, and I definitely, I feel like we can talk for hours. Maybe we'll do this again, and kind of dive into different topics. But no, I really appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I will put all those links in the description just to make it easy for everyone as well. So yeah, thank you. And guys, I will catch you at the next video.